Hey friends, welcome back to the Irony Shelf. Tonight, an entry from our audio archive, Reginald on Christmas Presents, by Saki. Now, prepare to examine the case of the festive fault finder. I wish it to be distinctly understood, said Reginald, that I don't want a leather-bound daily devotional book or a red tie as a Christmas present. This fact cannot be too widely known. There ought to be educational classes, he continued, on the science of present giving. No one seems to have the faintest idea what anyone else wants. And the ordinary ideas on the subject are hardly a credit to a civilized community. Take, for instance, a female relative in the country who insists that a tie is always useful, and sends some spotted horror you'd only wear under the cover of darkness, or if you wished to be mistaken for a tourist in Tottenham Court. It might have been useful had she used it to tie back her currant bushes. It would have supported the branches, while frightening away the birds. For it is a proven fact that the common garden bird has far better taste than the average female relative in the country. Then there are aunts. They are always a difficult class to deal with in the matter of presents. The trouble is that one never catches them while they are really young enough to be taught. By the time one has educated them to understand that one does not wear red-mitted mittens in the fashionable heart of the city, they die, or quarrel with the family, or do something equally inconsiderate. That is why the supply of properly trained aunts is always so uncertain. There is my Aunt Agatha, for instance, who sent me a pair of gloves last Christmas, and even managed to choose a style that was fashionable and had the correct number of buttons. But they were size 9s. I sent them to a boy whom I deeply loathed. Out of mutual antipathy, he didn't wear them, of course. But knowing they fitted him perfectly, that was where the ultimate insult came from. It was nearly as consoling as if I had sent white flowers to his funeral. Of course, I wrote and assured my aunt that her gift was the single crowning joy of my existence. I'm afraid she thought me frivolous. She comes from the north, where the people are notoriously grim and live in perpetual fear of heaven and the local nobility. Here it must be mentioned that Reginald affects an exhaustive knowledge of things political, which furnishes an excellent excuse for not discussing them. Aunts with a dash of continental blood are the most satisfactory in the way of understanding style and taste. But if you can't choose your aunt, it is wisest in the long run to choose the present yourself and send her the bill. Even friends of one's own social circle, who might be expected to know better, have curious delusions on the subject. I am certainly not collecting cliché, imitation leather editions of classic Persian poetry, like the Rubaiyat. I gave the last 4 that I received to the elevator boy, and I like to think of him reading them, with all the scholarly footnotes, to his aged mother. According to the popular dramas, these lower-class boys always seem to have an aged mother at home. It shows such exquisite manners on their part, I think. Personally, I find it hard to understand the difficulty of choosing suitable presents. No boy who has been raised properly would fail to appreciate one of those decorative bottles of liqueur that are so elegantly displayed in the high-end shop windows. And it wouldn't in the least matter if he received duplicates. and there would always be the supreme moment of dreadful uncertainty, wondering if it was crème de menthe or chartreuse. Much like the tense thrill of watching your partner's hand turned up at bridge. People may say what they like about the supposed decay of Christianity, but the religious system that produced green chartreuse can never really die. And then, of course, there are liqueur glasses, crystallized fruits, tapestry curtains, and heaps of other necessities that make really sensible presents. Not to mention luxuries, such as having one's bills paid, or getting something quite exquisite in the way of jewelry. Unlike the proverbial good woman of the Bible, who was worth far more than rubies, I'm certainly not above them myself. When found, by the way, she must have been rather a problem at Christmas. After all, nothing short of a blank cheque would have fit that situation. Perhaps it's just as well that she seems to have died out. The great charm about me, Reginald concluded, is that I am so easily pleased. But I do draw the line at a leather-bound daily devotional book. And here we conclude our reading of Reginald on Christmas Presents, written by Saki and respectfully adapted for the modern listener. At the time this story was written in 1901, England was in a pivotal transition at the dawn of the Edwardian era. The holiday season had fully commercialized, concluding a shift away from Victorian handcrafted goods into an era of aggressive retail marketing and the mass production of luxury items and trinkets. Reginald's arrogance is the perfect lens for viewing this retail frenzy through the aristocratic gaze of the Edwardian dandy. By suggesting chartreuse and jewelry as far more appropriate gifts than mass-produced ties and devotional books, he acts as the deliberately vain critic of a society suddenly obsessed with the modern business of giving. As we leave the festive fault-finder to his languid complaints, if you find a certain charm in these classic stories, we invite you to subscribe and join us here at the Irony Shelf. Your support allows us to continue curating these volumes for the audio archive. Thank you for listening. I look forward to sharing our next story with you very soon.